Welcome to the QB Chronicles, an SMU Football Podcast with Garrett Gilbert and Kyle Padron. Join former SMU quarterbacks Garrett and Kyle as they break down each week's game, offering insights from their own experiences on the field. In addition to game analysis, we'll also bring you special episodes featuring interviews with past and present SMU players, sharing their stories and perspectives. Whether you're a diehard Mustang fan or just love football, this podcast is your go-to source for all things SMU football. Pony up!
Welcome back to the QB Chronicles. I'm Kyle Padron, joined by my good buddy Garrett Gilbert. GG, welcome back.
How we doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Apologies for the hiatus last week and the non-breakdown of the Q's game.
Well, that's all right. We've got a good one to break down today. Our ponies rolled to 2-0 in ACC play, beating Stanford 34-10 in an 11 a.m. blackout, which I assume was set in hopes of having a night game. But we fought through the heat in our all black and came out victorious. But no, I think just to start, I'll let you kind of give your thoughts on the game. But, overall, excited with how we came out against, what was 18.5-point favorites. A little bit of a sleepy start, but handled Stanford in the way that they should. And so feeling very positive and optimistic going into Clemson. But why don't you go ahead and give us your breakdown of what happened on Saturday?
Absolutely. I think starting real quickly with a couple negatives, things to build on is, you mentioned the sleepy starts. That's kind of become a theme this year, is just sort of starting slow. I think we had the first couple games where Romello caught touchdowns on like the first or second play of the game. And then since then, we've just kind of been slow to get going. Again, in games where we're 20-ish point favorites or more. So something to build on. But to your point, I thought all in all, one of our most complete games thus far this year. I thought the defense played much better. As a general statement, we didn't outgain them by a ton of yards, but we made them earn every yard. Whereas I felt like, SMU was able to create some more explosives, especially as the game got going on. I thought Kevin played really well. I thought Jordan Hudson played really well. I thought Chris Johnson Jr. played really well. And then I thought the defense got timely stops. Again, it was Stanford dominated the time of possession. So going back to getting off the field, we're going to have to continue to find a way to get off the field. Now, Stanford was only 5 of 16 on third downs, but they were moving the ball and staying on the field. And then we found a way to keep them from scoring points, which I think was a big-time calling card of our defense the past couple of years. So finding a way to bend but don't break. And there have been great defenses forever that have played that way. It kept our offense fresh. Frankly, they were able to stay loose and then run away from things as the game got going on. But overall, a solid performance. And again, I thought Kevin played probably his cleanest game yet. Just very sharp. Made some really nice throws in zone to Jordan Hudson over the middle on a couple of in cuts that they're like textbook teach tape throws, and then also makes the spectacular play here and there that I'm sure we'll discuss more later on.
Yeah. I think sticking with the defensive side of the ball, 6 sacks, something you and I have been asking for the last several weeks. Good to see the defensive line be active and put pressure on a struggling Stanford offense. Not a really good offense, but to put them in those tough, longer down situations, forced 2 turnovers, got a pick 6 and a fumble recovery, and then the big goal line stand, 4th and 1, made a big crucial stop there early on in the game. So very pleased with the defense. Thought they played well. I thought an interesting stat. We held them to 75 yards rushing for the game, but held them to 2.3 yards per carry. So it's great when you can stop the run on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, you want to establish the run and average closer to 4 yards a carry. To really open up the offense in the passing game. And I thought our defense did a really good job of making them one-dimensional and forcing them to throw the ball, which they were not very proficient at. And it allowed our defense to play a pretty solid game. But kudos to the defensive line. And then the club takeaway, that's always huge. And when you can score points off the turnovers as well, getting in the end zone on the pick six, that's huge for the offense, especially in that, specific situation. That was a potential for Stanford to make that a one possession game. And then you flip the script and make it a 3-possession game really quickly. So just really proud of the way our defense came out, the way they played. Really only one possession that I thought right before half that, maybe mental lapse, kind of, letting the foot off the gas a little bit. But overall, a pretty impressive performance by the defense and the offense.
Yeah.
Would be impressive. Kevin, you mentioned it. Very, efficient, clean game, 22 of 30, 247, 2 touchdowns passing. One thing I wanted to ask you is I was kind of reflecting on a play that's been seen on Twitter or X for the last 48 hours is the behind the back pass. I never threw one in my career. Have you ever completed a behind the back pass?
No, I have not. I don't think I ever even thought about throwing a behind the back pass. I mean, that was clearly one that they practiced. That wasn't like a, Patrick Mahomes impromptu, throw behind the back. But that was, pretty nifty way to gain 7 yards. I thought that was pretty cool. And obviously,
I don't think June ever considered you or myself throwing a behind the back pass.
No,
it was always over the top.
Save those for the basketball court.
Yeah, but you mentioned it too. CJ 2K had a great game. It was good to see him get some touches. Want to see him get more touches. He only had 5 carries. Obviously, the explosive play, 86-yard touchdown, I believe. And then the passing game, explosive as well, 2 for 42, but 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 receiving. A great game for CJ. Hopefully get him more involved. Not as stellar for TJ. I think he had more of the kind of ground and pound, kind of his typical style, where he's going to get those tough yards and bully people. And but CJ kind of is the game breaker. And I think we've got 2, Thunder and Lightning, 2 good backs to where we can put pressure on defense and give them 2 different looks to account for each week. Yeah,
totally agree. I think my notes are doing something funky here, but I completely agree. It was sort of a different one in terms of our ability to run the ball versus past weeks. But we did average 5.1 a carry. I mean, obviously a lot of that came from one run. There just weren't a ton of rushing attempts outside of that. We didn't have the ball for very long. So TJ is kind of, like you said, he's kind of the, lean on guys and bully them and bruise them. And then you break the long one as the game goes on. And that just wasn't the type of game that it was. I want to go back to that turnover on downs drive, because I did notice one thing, we're used to seeing the Ponies as being the most penalized team in the game, and we were not. But early in the second quarter, Stanford goes on a drive. They kick a field goal. They miss it. We're offside. Stanford takes the points off the board, goes for it on 4th down, gets it, drives down the field. We stop them again on 3rd down, and then we get one of those, I don't know what in the world penalties where we're like making a box and then punching through it, and the ref called a 15-yard penalty. I'm not going to understand why we got to do that. I know refs are making a point to, emphasize, the sportsmanship aspect, and I get it. I know that was a little silly, but like, it's the rule and it's game 6 now. Like, we can't can't have that. So then that gives Stanford 1st and goal on the 2, and then we get the stop. So I thought that was we'll call it impressive. Like, we created a little bit of problems for ourselves, but a really impressive sequence in terms of not giving up points in that situation. Then we turned around right after that, and it looked like the half was going to be over and we were going to kind of slow play it. And then bam, CJ took off for a 86-yard touchdown. So that was a nice little swing in the game. It went from potentially going to be 10-7 to 17-0 pretty quickly.
Yeah, and it goes back to, what you and I talked about a couple of weeks ago, and what June instilled in us of, those 5 or 6 big plays each game that you look back on that really broke the game open. And those happened to be on our side this week. Didn't have those against TCU or Baylor, but those 5 or 6 plays that we can look back on, CJ's run, the pick 6, what the situation you just talked about after those penalties, getting that 4th down stop, all of those lead to the result we saw on Saturday of a win. But it comes down to, 5 or 6 plays in a game. And we just happen to be the team that made those plays this week.
Yeah. Completely agree. I think, I think you're exactly right. I think that kind of hits it. I mean, we did a nice job other than the one drive against the pass, and did a nice job against the run all day on defense. So we've been tough on the defense this year. So got to give them a little bit of credit, or a lot of credit, for that performance. Let's get your Padron shot of the game presented by Socorro Tequila out there on the edge of the screen there.
Goes down smooth. I think, speaking of smooth, Kevin Jennings does what Kevin Jennings does best, eluding the rush. My Padron shot of the game is not a long pass this week. It's more focused on what Kevin's been able to do in his entire career. But again, this week, just evading the rush on multiple occasions, and then finding CJ2K out in the flat there. And then CJ does what he does best, just in the open field, makes some guys miss. So it's not the sexiest play in the world as far as, chunk yards, at least air yards anyway. But always impressed with Kevin's playmaking ability, and he showcased again this past Saturday. I didn't see if it was a top 10. I assume it probably was. If it wasn't on SportsCenter, that is their mistake. But Padron shot of the game presented by Socorro is Kevin Jennings to CJ2K, 42-yard touchdown.
I thought that was an excellent play, and I was hoping that would be your choice because it was the coolest play of the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed.
I thought, again, I do want to just a couple of those in-cut routes that Kevin threw to Jordan, who, by the way, is catching the ball really well right now and finding the zone.
The way he plucks the ball out of the air, man, it's so impressive.
Football IQ, and it really showed on Saturday in terms of just his ability to find holes in the zone. And I think another thing that it shows is Kevin's confidence, both in him and in the offense, and in himself throwing the ball. You're throwing those in cuts like before the receiver breaks, and so I really wish we had film at a time like this. But he did a fantastic job of letting that ball go, releasing it high over the middle, knowing that his receiver is going to be in that little window, in that soft spot, go up, make the catch, and then Jordan kind of comes down confidently, and he can either go down and avoid a hit, or make somebody miss and make some get some yak there. So I thought there were two that stick out to me there, but I think the Padron shot of the game definitely belongs to Kevin Jennings, throwing it to my MVP of the game, CJ2K Jr. Two huge plays, and that's really all there is to it. I think I think he deserves it from those two plays. They were electric, and they were game-changing plays.
Yep, love that. I want to elaborate a little bit more on Kevin's performance and really the first touchdown. We drive the field, we get in a 4th and goal situation, and they bring pressure. And something that June always talked about with us was knowing where to go with the ball quickly. I think this one was probably more of a by design, understanding what Stanford's going to do, but the way that Kevin calmly, they've got a zero blitz on and finds a running back in the flat. Nice, easy, catchable ball for a running back. It's another, coaching point. Give those guys something easy to handle. But just impressed with the way that Kevin's progressing and understanding where to go with the football when he's under pressure. Same thing with CJ on that, Padron shot of the game. I think Kevin's got a real command of this offense, and it's starting to show in those types of situations and plays.
Yeah, and Derek McFall went full on George Pickens there with the ball, caught it, and left it in one hand, ran on in the end zone for the touchdown. So that was a good one too. I love that one.
Yeah, love that. Well, let's jump around the country real quick. Had some upsets this week. Pitt takes down number 25 Florida State. ACC play there. Dion gets back in the win column. They knock off Iowa State. Lincoln Riley and USC knock off number 15 Michigan. Your boys at Texas, they win Red River this year, 23-6. I'm not sure Mateer should have been playing. Didn't look like himself.
He could see him kind of grabbing his hand, and it was a little bit dicey there, kind of the whole way. They didn't look like they had the first few games on offense.
So. No, unfortunately, rushed him back. Maybe, just the youth, the dumb tough that we used to talk about, trying to rush back. But hopefully doesn't have any further injury that prevents what I expect to be, a decent career in the NFL. Ole Miss was another good matchup this week, and they played The boys up in the Northwest, Washington State, snuck out a victory there, 24-21. Indiana beats Oregon, 30-20
for them.
Handed the Ducks their first loss, and then Ohio State went into Illinois and beat them 34-16. And then got to shout out our boy Preston Stone and the Northwestern Wildcats go up to Happy Valley and beat in what is James Franklin's last game now at Penn State, but they get out of Happy Valley victors there.
Yeah, that was wild. Good for Preston, big win for them. And then, man, how about Indiana going to Oregon and winning that game? The number 3 ranked team in the country, the Indiana Hoosiers. That's pretty wild to say. And then another team that I think deserves a little credit right now is Texas A&M. Florida coming off a big victory. I know they were at home last weekend against Texas and then go to College Station, but coming off of a big victory there, you kind of thought Florida was going to play a little better, and for a while they looked like it. And they were marching right down the field, matching Texas A&M score for score. But A&M put the clamps on them, and I think that was a good win for them. And A&M looks pretty good. Their offense has been better this year than in years past in terms of, just like scoring points when they need to. And against 2 of the best defenses they've played all year, in Florida and Notre Dame, they were pretty dang good on offense.
Yep. And we'll look ahead to this coming Saturday. Got some good matchups on the docket for us. ACC match to watch. Louisville 4-1 goes to number 2 Miami. Be fun to watch that one. I got Miami coming to Dallas on November 1st. Number 10 LSU will travel to Nashville to take on number 17 Vanderbilt. Number 15 Ole Miss goes between the hedges, and they'll play number 9 Georgia. Number 11 Tennessee will take on the Alabama Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa. Then the Men of Troy, number 20, will take on the Fighting Irish in South Bend, what I believe is a Saturday night game. I don't remember where game day will be this week. Do you know?
I do not know. That's a good question.
Probably Bama.
They got to go to Ole Miss, Georgia, right?
You'd think. I don't know. I mean, I guess they've been to Bama this year. I don't know. We'll look it up.
It's either Tennessee, Bama, or Ole Miss, Georgia. I would have to think. I mean, those are the two candidates there.
Wherever they can make the most money.
But yeah, a lot of good football games, and then obviously LSU Vanderbilt too. You may have mentioned that one, but I was scrolling. A bunch of good SEC matchups this weekend, so it'll be a fun weekend for football. And then obviously we will be back with a Pat and Go preview of the big matchup, SMU going into Death Valley, and hopefully getting a little revenge against the Clemson Tigers.
Yep, we need it. If you haven't yet, go check out our buddies over at Roback. Enter the code PONY20, get 20% off your first order. And with that, we'll be back with a Pat and Go preview of SMU Clemson here shortly. Pony up.
Thunder on.